All right. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to another edition of Success Principles. Awesome. Looks like Tom is just trying to log in here too. Beautiful. All right. Hey, good to see everybody. So full disclosure today, full disclosure, I got to come clean here. I couldn't decide whether we were going to talk about decision today and continue that conversation, or whether we should start to scratch the surface on faith. And I realized the irony of that a little bit, that I couldn't decide to whether or not we were going to make a conversation about decision or faith. So today we're going to blend them a little bit together. We're going to talk about decision and just start to get into faith and applied faith a little bit. So, here Melissa's back. I just love the conversation about decision. And I think that it's an absolutely fascinating subject. And like we said last week, that decision is actually, it's the most important function of the mind, because no creative endeavor can occur until we make a decision. I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said that you might delay, but time will not. And I think, oh, if that's not a punch to the gut, I don't know what is. But the fact is that decision-making is the most important function of the mind. And when you start to realize this, that you start to see that your entire life is the result or the effect of decisions that you made or haven't made. That everybody's life is the physical representation or the physical manifestation of their thoughts, their beliefs, and their decisions. That's crazy. Like just go for a walk around your neighborhood next time you're out and about, and just start to look at that through that lens. And everybody that you meet, their entire life is a physical manifestation of their thoughts, their beliefs, and their decisions. You'll begin to learn a lot about people in general, but yourself too. Now, I don't mean to do that or to come at that from like a place of judgment. That's not my intention there. Just, simple observation, curiosity, and intrigue. But that fascinates me. I think it was James Allen. He says this in that essay. He says, we think in secret and it comes to pass, but our environment is but a looking glass. I think that's what he's getting at there. I love that. Now, the fact of the matter is that decision-making is a habit. Decision-making is a habit. If decision-making is a habit, well, indecision's a habit too. Now, if it's a habit, that means that it was probably a learned behavior. And if you can learn it, you can unlearn it too, right? We can change our habits, just like we can change our thoughts or change our beliefs, okay? But decision-making is a habit. You might want to ask yourself, well, we got into this question last week, like, do I make decisions? And how do I make decisions? What's the habit that I'm in? Am I in the habit of deferring or delaying? And to be honest with you, I think that that's probably pretty common, And if indecision is a habit, you might want to ask yourself, well, where did I learn that habit? Where does that come from? And Bob Proctor says that indecision is a habit that was learned in youth. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I look at my kids, and for those of you who have kids on the call, you might resonate with this, but I look at my kids and I think my kids are very decisive. They know exactly what they want. And man, if they're not persistent as all get out. You know what I mean? Like, kids are some of the best salespeople on the planet. They know exactly what they want, and they'll keep going at you and at you and asking and asking and asking and telling and telling and telling until finally it's like, all right, just take it. You can have it, do it, go for it. You know? So I wondered about that. You know, Bob Proctor says that decision or indecision is a habit that's learned in youth. I wonder to what extent that's true. I think kids are really decisive. If anything, maybe, you know, we're taught out of it. Maybe it's something where we're taught to be more indecisive and question ourselves and things like that. I don't know. You know, but the fact of the matter is it's a habit. And if it's a habit, we can improve upon it. Right? The reason we might want to improve upon it is because, well, like he says in this essay, Decision by Bob Proctor, he says that indecision is a disintegrating energy. He says an indecision creates internal conflict. Out of curiosity, does anybody happen to have a copy of the Decision essay on them or nearby? Melissa's looking for it. Anybody? You got it, Melissa? Okay, sweet. Will you do me a favor here? I think Janelle says she does too. Hey, Melissa, do you mind unmuting yourself? Would you do me a favor? Would you read just the last sentence on the first page and the first sentence on the next one?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry,
Yeah, go ahead.
issues with my computer, and so now I'm on my phone, and some reason I'm in a oh, there. Okay. Now you can see my water glass.
That's okay. You're good.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Can you repeat what you'd like me to read, Matt?
Sure. Yeah. Can you read the last sentence on the first page, starting with my Oxford Dictionary?
The first on the last page of which one?
Decision by Bob Proctor.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then the first sentence of the next page.
Okay. One more time. Where is it?
Yeah, so the last sentence there starts with my Oxford Dictionary tells me.
On which page though?
On the decision essay by Bob Proctor. It should be the last paragraph of the first page, page one.
Oh, yes. Okay. Mine last paragraph on the first page says James Allen may have been thinking. That part. Oh, my Oxford Dictionary tells me that ambivalence is the coexistence in one person of opposite feelings towards the same objective.
Right. And then the next sentence, one more sentence.
You do not require a doctorate degree in psychiatry to understand that you are going to have difficulty in your life by permitting your mind to remain in an ambivalent state for any period of time.
Awesome. Okay, right on. Can you read that whole thing one more time for us?
Yep. My Oxford Dictionary tells me that ambivalence is the coexistence in one person of opposite feelings towards the same objective. You do not require a doctorate degree in psychiatry to understand that you are going to have difficulty in your life by permitting your mind to remain in an ambivalent state for any period of time.
Right. Right. Now, I thought that was fascinating. And the reason is because I can see very clearly in my own life how a state of ambivalence has caused me like stress, anxiety, discomfort. You know, they say that sitting on a fence is a real uncomfortable place to be. You know, and if you're sitting up there for too long, like it gets pretty painful pretty quick. Now, I really struggled with this though. And here's why. some of you may know this, and maybe this is news to some, but I went to school to be a lawyer. I trained to be a lawyer. I studied, I wrote the LSATs, I applied to law school. I actually got accepted, okay? And I kind of prided myself as a law student to be able to argue both cases, both sides of the case. They train you to do that. They teach you how to do that and to be flexible in your thinking. And for me, that was kind of a point of pride. And an exercise that we used to do was like they present the facts of a case, okay? And part of what our challenge was to try to see if we could come up with at least 3 other plausible explanations for what happened. You know, what does a lawyer do when they're up in front of a jury? Well, they try to plant doubt in the seeds of the jury members, don't they? Reasonable doubt. And if they can create a scenario and paint the picture and create reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury, well, they must, what's the word, not convict. Yeah, this word escaped me now. Right? But if they're planting seeds of doubt in the minds of the jury, then they're going to be found not guilty. Right? So I kind of prided myself on this idea of being able to be flexible in my thinking. And when I read things like the Decision essay by Bob Proctor or Decision and Steadfastness by James Allen, I really struggled with this. Like when he says, James Allen in Decision and Steadfastness says, a man should be decided always. Make up your mind quickly and act decisively, or better still, have a mind that is already made up, and then decision will be instinctive and spontaneous. I thought, man, that just goes against everything I think and believe. To me, I thought, wow, that sounds like somebody who's closed-minded. Did anybody else get that as they read through that essay? To me, that's somebody who doesn't have a growth mindset. You're not open to new ideas. You're not open to new experiences. You've already made up your mind before you even know the facts. That wasn't something that was very admirable in my opinion. So I struggled with that essay. Make up your mind even before the fact? Have your mind decided always? Oh man, I don't like that. I had a very strong visceral reaction to that statement. Now, I think anytime that we have a strong reaction to something, whether it's positive or negative, it's because there's an underlying belief there. It's because there's something in there inside of you that's saying, oh, either I agree strongly with that or something about that I really don't like, I really disagree with, I really dislike. Anytime I have a strong emotional response to something like that, I know I've got a big fish. I know that there's something in my unconscious or something in my subconscious mind that's attached to that. Either a belief or a thought. Part of my unconscious programming. So I struggled with that essay. But then I started to look at it through the lens of the 100% rule that we discussed last week. We were talking about how being 100% decided is way easier than 98%. Being 100% decided, I mean, you make up your mind, you decide one time and it's done. You can put it away. You don't have to think about it anymore. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I started to look at it through the lens of, well, a person who's 100% decided, they know in their heart of hearts, they know who they want to be, where they're going, and what they want to do. They don't have to weigh every single option at every single fork in the road because they've already made up their mind. Now that I can get my head around. That I can understand a little bit when I start to look at that through that lens. And Bob Proctor uses the example of Ramadan. He says that he was having a visit with a friend and a woman asked him if they'd like any tea. And the woman had already decided, she knew that it was Ramadan. It wasn't a matter of, oh, well, what kind of tea are you serving up? You know, it wasn't a matter of, well, do I want it or not? It's like, well, this is what I'm doing. It was a done deal. And I find like the similar situations in my case where it's like, you know, what people ask, well, do you want to drink? No, I don't drink. Do you want to smoke? No, I'm not a smoker. You know, do you want dessert? It's like, I don't really eat that kind of stuff. It's not that I don't like it. It's just, I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff. This is not my thing. What would you like for breakfast? You know, sometimes you go to these breakfast places like IHOP you know, if you've ever been to some of those pancake houses down in the States, and they've got a breakfast menu that's like, you know, 10 pages long. Cora's, I like Cora's. I don't know if you guys have ever been to that place. Pretty good. But oftentimes I look at those menus and I think, really, most of this doesn't matter to me. My goals are very clear, and I'm clear in my mind of what it is that I want and what it is that I'm doing and who it is that I am. So my decisions are already made out. In fact, I've heard some people say that, you know, if your goal is to be, you know, fit and lean and strong and healthy and that kind of thing, when it comes to breakfast, you got two choices. You've got two choices. It's either you're fasting or you're going high protein. The conversation is not like, well, am I doing Fruit Loops or Cheerios? Is it Frosted Flakes or, like, you know, Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Those aren't even an option on the table. There's a mentor of mine by the name of Trevor Moawad. And Trevor Moawad, he's a mindset coach from the States. And he works extensively with high-level athletes. Some of you have heard me talk about Trevor Moawad before. And Trevor Moawad has a concept in his book. His book's called "It Takes What It Takes." And I think that's an apt title for his book. But he talks about how there's a thing called the illusion of choice. The illusion of choice. And I think that in a lot of cases that it's true that your choices are actually very limited depending on your goal. We don't have an infinite number of choices. Once you make up your mind and you have a clear goal and a destination in mind, it limits automatically the number of choices that you have available to you. The illusion of choice. He talks a little bit about an experience that he had with Vince Carter. Vince Carter, for some of you might remember, was a basketball player that played for the Toronto Raptors. And he played well into his 40s, which is, you know, like LeBron James is 38 right now, and he's looking at retiring. You know, that's pretty old for an athlete of any sport, especially one that's as high impact as basketball. You might think, well, basketball's not high impact. Well, there's a lot of jumping that's involved, and it's hard on your knees, you know. And I remember an interview that Trevor Moawad was talking about with Vince Carter, and he said to Vince, "Hey, I don't see a slam dunk anymore. Like, well, what's up with that?" And Vince Carter, like, he put it on a show. You know, he won the slam dunk competition a number of years back with Toronto, and the guy's got some serious vertical. But he says, "Oh, I can't dunk anymore." And it's kind of, what? What do you mean, Vince Carter? You can't dunk? Well, I can dunk, but I choose not to because I want to play into my 40s. I want to have a long career. And if I continue to dunk and I continue to jump like that, well, I'll blow my knees and it's going to end my career. So that is no longer a choice. It's off the table. And I think about that in terms of my life. Like, you know, if I want to perform at my best, if I want to be thinking clearly, if I want to feel my best, think my best, and be my best, well, there's just certain things that I can't afford to do anymore. I can't stay up half the night. I can't be drinking. I can't be partying. I can't be going out. Those are just off the table. Similarly with, you know, if you want to be rich, if you want to earn a lot of money, you can't earn a lot of money if you're not willing to take a few risks here and there. If I want to be a coach and a presenter and have clients, I have to be willing to put myself out there. I have to be willing to be seen, to open up and be vulnerable. You know, I can't be a world-class coach and still stay at home on my couch and kind of hide in my living room. I have to be going to events. I have to be meeting new people. I have to be putting on workshops. I have to be putting myself out there. Kind of comes with the territory. You know what I mean? So when it comes to things like that, like it doesn't matter what you decide. It doesn't matter what you decide. It's just the fact that you decide to pick a direction and go somewhere and do something. You know, one of my very first mentors was actually as a friend's dad, and his name was Peter, and he's since passed. But one of the biggest lessons that I got from Peter at a very young age was that indecision is the worst decision. Indecision is the worst decision. I played soccer with his son, and he used to drill that into our heads all the time. You know, sometimes when you're looking at your options on the field, I'm thinking, well, am I going to pass? Am I going to shoot? You know, and sometimes I'd stutter, I'd you know, stutter step. And it's indecision is the worst decision. Just pick one and go. I think, man, is that ever true? You know, it's funny. When I was in high school, I dated this woman, and we were together for a few years. And when she graduated from high school, I bought her a graduation present. We'd been together for a long time, so we had done the like rings and jewelry and necklaces and stuff like that. And so I wanted to do something a little bit different. And so I bought her a skydiving lesson, or like a skydiving experience. Okay. And so for her graduation, we went skydiving together. And there's this cool little place up by Waka, if any of you guys have been up to that part of the province. And they have a little airport there, and it's like the Saskatchewan Skydiving Club. And so we went for the weekend, and we did this like training workshop on Friday night, and then Saturday morning got up early and we did some more training and practice and that sort of thing. And then we go up in the airplane, and we're getting ready to jump out of the airplane. And I'll still remember this. I'll never forget this. The guy who we took the lessons from, he's up there in the plane, and he's got a camera attached to his helmet. This is, I think, even before the days of like actual GoPros, but he has this camera attached to his helmet. And I'll never forget this. When he opens the door, it's like, all of a sudden the wind's blowing and it's really loud, and like you hear the motor going and things like that. It's like, holy shit, this is really happening. Like, we're really going to do this. All right. But my kind of training kicked in, and I went out first. The heaviest person's supposed to go out first, so they fall a little bit faster. So I climb out on the wing and I let myself go and touch down, do my thing. And then she climbs out and touches down and does her thing. And we paid extra for the video because I wanted to be able to remember this. I thought this is a pretty like unique experience. And so we're looking back at this video after the fact, okay? And this guy's filming as my girlfriend at the time climbs out of the airplane, but she's like halfway out of the airplane and starts to get like cold feet. She starts to like kind of like change her mind. She's stuck in indecision. She's kind of like half in, half out, half in, half out. And this is the funny part. He looks down, and you can see in the camera, he kicks her out of the airplane, literally pushes her out of the airplane. And I just thought that's hilarious. So funny. But she was safe. I mean, she like landed and everything like that. It was fine. But I asked him about this afterwards. I said, wow, like, you know, that's a little risky, isn't it? He said, no. He said, you know, kind of like climbing around and messing around in indecision is the risky part. He says, if you like get caught up on something, or you make a mistake and you get stuck, or like you're in real danger and at risk of hurting not only yourself, but everybody in the airplane, including him and the pilot. And I thought, I should dig this old, it's on a VHS. I don't know. I don't have a VHS player anymore. I don't know if anybody does. Maybe I could borrow it. But I thought that was fascinating. You know, he pushed her right out of the airplane, kicked her off the edge. And, you know, he talks about this in that essay, Decision and Steadfastness. And James Allen says that men and women who are afraid to make a decision for fear of making a mistake nearly always make a mistake when they do act. Men and women who are afraid to make a decision for fear of making a mistake nearly always make a mistake when they do act. Interesting, isn't it? I look back at some of the indecision in my life and some of the things that I hummed and hawed about and things like that. And yeah, I could probably attest to the, you know, validity of that statement too. You know, but if decision making is a habit, which it is, you know, how do you get good at that? How do you get good at making decisions quickly and firmly? What do you think?
Just start doing it.
Just start doing it. Just pull the trigger.
Just with every little decision that you make.
With every little decision you make, right? You know, you know, it's funny, I don't think Janelle will mind me sharing this, but this is a conversation decision that we've been talking about for some time. And I remember this was going back a while ago. I asked Janelle if she wanted to do the program with me. And we were talking about it, and she's like, well, give me some time, I'll think about it. And we had already been talking about decision making. And I was like, you realize that this is an opportunity for you to practice decision making. Do you remember that, Janelle?
Yeah. You scammed me into that one.
I scammed you into that one. Yeah. That's right. It wasn't a scam, but I thought that was a, you know, what a great example.
You used my greatest weakness against me.
Is your kryptonite. Funny. But you know, I think Janelle's absolutely right. You know, you get good at making decisions quickly and firmly by making decisions quickly and firmly. Just like how do you get good at anything? Well, with practice and with repetition. Now, here's the interesting thing is looking back at my life, I probably spent months, if not years of my life in indecision. Okay. And when an opportunity would arise, I would sit back and I'd hum and haw and I'd weigh all the options and things like that. And maybe months or years later, I would finally make a decision. Now, full transparency, am I great at making decisions quickly and firmly? No. But am I better than I used to be? Yes, 100%. Not 100% better, but yes, I'm getting better. Okay. And I think that to Janelle's point, you practice getting in the habit of making decisions quickly and firmly, and you start to close that gap. If before it used to take me months or years, maybe it takes me weeks, or maybe it takes me days to make a decision, or maybe it takes me hours. If I continue to work at this and practice this and repeat this habit, maybe someday it'll be as instantaneous and spontaneous as James Allen's talking about in Decision and Steadfastness. Now, personally, I think that the reason why most people don't make decisions or they get stuck in indecision is because they don't see how they're going to make it happen. People get stuck in indecision because they don't have a clear path forward. They don't have the perfect plan that's showing them exactly how that's going to work out. I think that's a big part of what holds a lot of people back or stops people from making decisions quickly and firmly, is that they don't see exactly how that's going to happen. But I think it was Martin Luther King Jr. who said that faith is the ability to take that first step without being able to see the whole staircase. And I think that's where faith comes in. I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but Rumi, however you say it, that philosopher and that poet, he says that as you walk, the path will appear. You know, to be honest with you, this is one of the main reasons why we even talk about faith and why I teach faith and why we talk about applied faith. And the reason is because, well, here, you know, Bob Proctor talks about how the universal law of polarity states that for every up, there's a down. For every inside, there's an outside. If there's white, then there must be black. If there's light, there must be dark. And if there's cold, then there must be heat, right? The law of polarity. Well, the law of polarity states that if we're a physical being, there must be a part of us that's spiritual or non-physical. Now, when I say spiritual, that's what I mean is, I mean the non-physical side of us. Okay, I'm not necessarily speaking about religion per se. Okay, but if there's a physical side of us, then there must be a non-physical side of us. We'll call that the spiritual side of us, okay, or the energy side of us. Okay, and Albert Einstein said that everything is energy. That's just all there is to it, right? Now, all energy operates according to law. Part of that law is the law of vibration, okay? And all energy operates on a specific frequency. All energy operates on a specific frequency. So let's imagine for a moment that these lines represent infinite numbers of frequencies, because there's infinite numbers of frequencies, okay? Now, you and I, we each operate on a frequency. Right now, you're operating on a specific frequency, okay? And we've got our thoughts, we've got our feelings, we've got our actions, we've got our habits, okay? We've got our problems, we've got our decisions that we're making, okay? And all of those, the combination of our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our decisions, our problems, our habits, all create the results that we're getting, okay? So your results are on a specific frequency, okay? Now, here's the thing. If you set a goal, your goal is also on a frequency. Now, let's say your goal is on a frequency up here. Okay, well, here, this is interesting. Your goal might be up here if it's a type of goal like a worthy goal or a progressive goal. Remember, I said there's 3 types of goals. There's static goals, progressive goals, and worthy goals. Some people will set a goal and their goal will be down here. And their goal, I'll ask them, well, what's your goal? And they'll say, well, I want to run a 5K. It's like, okay, have you ever run a 5K before? It's like, yeah, I ran one last summer. It was awesome. Okay, well, you've already done that. You already know how to do that. That's not going to require much in the form of growth or change, you know, or people who might say like, well, I want to earn 100K this year. It's like, well, how much did you earn last year? Well, I earned 100K. So there is no real growth there. And where there's no growth, there's no real reward. Okay. So if your goal is a worthy goal, okay, it's going to be up here. Okay. Now, if you set a goal up here, then the next thing that I want you to do, or you should be doing, is asking yourself a simple question. Who's the man or woman that's capable of achieving that goal? Who's the man or woman that's capable of achieving that goal? Okay. Now, the reason why that's a powerful question is because right away, then you can begin to use your imagination. Okay. One of the, 6 higher faculties, using your imagination to begin to ask yourself, well, how does that person think? What does that person feel? How does that person act? What are some of those person's habits? how does that person make decisions? Okay. Unfortunately, you'll also have some of those types of problems as well when you start to act, think, behave, and feel like on the level of the person who's achieving your goals. Okay. But this is the foundation of what's called identity-based change. Identity-based change, where you want to ask yourself, well, who's the man or the woman that's accomplishing that goal? And then you want to start to get to know that person, start to think like them, start to feel like them, start to act like them. Okay. Remember, we said that one of the strongest forces in human nature is this desire to remain consistent with who we believe ourselves to be. And when you begin to think and you begin to act and you begin to behave like the person who's achieving your goal, eventually the day will come where that's just who you are. At first, it starts with an intention. Then it becomes an action. Over time, that action becomes ingrained in our behavior, becomes an unconscious habit. And if you continue to persist in that habit, it just becomes who you are. This is why Bob Proctor talked about the question in the decision chapter, where he asks, he's talking about decision, and he's saying that to get into the habit of making decisions based on what you want rather than what you have. Get into the habit of making decisions based on what you want rather than what you have. Okay, and remember, we drew a diagram last week or a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about how if you look to your results on the outside to make your decisions, you're looking at the outside world to allow you to make your decisions. You're allowing your results to control your thinking. And what you're going to do is you're just going to continue to perpetuate and repeat that same cycle of behavior, because your results are a representation or the effect of past thinking. So he says to get into the goal of making decisions from your goal, make decisions from your goal rather than working towards your goal, looking at the outside world to control your thinking. You want to get into the habit of making decisions from your goal. Now, I'll be honest with you. I really struggled with this essay by Bob Proctor when he says there's only one thing that he allows to control his decision-making process. Who here remembers what he said? Anybody? What's the one thing that Bob Proctor makes his decisions on?
If he wants to do it or not.
Right, if he wants to do it or not. Yeah, do I want it? Now, I struggle with that. In fact, to be honest with you, I still don't fully accept that. And the reason is because we've talked before about how I want lots of things. The conscious thinking mind wants all kinds of things. And sometimes they're simultaneously in conflict with one another, aren't they? Yeah. I want to stay in bed and get an extra hour of sleep, but I also want to wake up and be productive and, get a good start to my day. So the little caveat that I've attached to that question is not only, well, do I want it? I've added a couple other questions to help me fulfill that. I've added, well, does this help me achieve my goal? Does this help me achieve my goal? And another one that I've added is, Matt, goal achieved. Does he do this thing? Or Matt, goal achieved. Does he have this thing? And I've shared with all of you guys before this story about me, wanting to grow my coaching business. But at the same time, like, I had an old crappy computer from my days in college, and it kept conking out on me on Zoom calls. I had to call up my clients and be like, oh, my computer froze. Sorry about that. And in my head, I was thinking to myself, well, I'll get a new computer when I get more clients and I can afford it. That was my logic. And it sounds fair enough. But what I realized is, no, does Matt, goal achieved, have a computer that's functioning and operating? Yeah. Well, then I've got to do it. I don't have a choice anymore. Again, that illusion of choice, that my choices are actually really limited depending on my goal. It's a very, very powerful question. And once you start to become that person in your mind and you start to do the things that that person does, that's then and only then can you really have the rewards of that. Now, you guys remember Delin Miller? She came and spoke on one of our Mindset Monday calls a couple of months ago. And Delin said something very powerful to me that always stuck out to me. She said, this is a line from Think and Grow Rich, but she modified it and she made it her own. She says, riches don't respond to wishes, bitches. And she used to say that all the time. Riches don't respond to wishes, bitches. And I just think that, you know, a lot of times people are in the habit of staying down here on their frequency, continuing to think what they're thinking, feeling what they're feeling, acting the way that they're acting, you know, with their own habits, their own decisions. And they think that they're going to get this goal. They're hoping, wishing, and praying that they're going to get that goal. And it just doesn't happen that way. So the challenge is to put ourselves in that position to start to make decisions from our goal rather than working towards our goal. Now, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The bad news is that you cannot outperform your paradigm. You cannot outperform your self-image. If any of you have tried this in the past, you probably experienced some form of self-sabotage, like I know I have. You cannot outperform your self-image, okay? But the good news is, you guys ready for this? The good news, you might want to write this down too. The good news is that every single possible self-image already exists within you. Every single possible self-image already exists within you. It's just whichever one you want to give attention to. It's whichever one you give energy to. It's whatever one you focus on. So if you want to be an artist, you start thinking like an artist, you start talking like an artist, you start behaving like an artist, you start having habits that support an artist, and you will be an artist. Thomas Rowe, The Multiverse, that's right. Yeah, 100% though. You know, if you want to be a musician, you start thinking like a musician, you start talking like a musician, you start behaving like a musician, and at some point along the way, you will be a musician. If you want to be a fitness model, if you want to be a yoga master, it's the same thing. You want to be a happy person, you start thinking like a happy person. You start talking like somebody who's happy. You start behaving like somebody who's happy. You start to look at the habits of what a happy person does, okay? And eventually you will just be a happy person. That's how it works. You start talking to yourself like a happy person does. You start to support that goal. Now there's two things. Now here, even before I say that, at first, it might feel kind of awkward. It might feel kind of uncomfortable. It might kind of feel contrary to your habitual way of doing things. You might think, oh, this is uncomfortable. You know, I'm not, you know, a musician yet, or I'm not a yoga master yet. But yet is the operative word there. Yet. You know, in all fairness, you might not quite be qualified to do that just yet. It might not be exactly who you are just yet. You know, there was a time and place where I was not in the least bit qualified to be a coach. There was a time and place where I had no business giving anybody any sort of advice or suggestions on how they should think or what they should do. I had a hard enough time taking advice, never mind giving advice. Okay. But over time, I started to cultivate that and develop that, and it became a part of my personality, a part of my identity. Now it's crazy. Now I'm thinking like, I have this team at the University of Saskatchewan that I'm trying. I got kicked out of the University of Saskatchewan. I was asked not to return. Okay. I flunked out of classes. Okay. I didn't graduate from the U of S. I went to the University of Calgary and I ended up going to the U of C and I graduated there. But to think that I'm back at the U of S now and I'm leading a team of instructors, professors, and alumni, there's directors that I'm coaching and training, that blows my mind. That's crazy to me, you know, but that's how it happens. Life's funny sometimes, isn't it? Yeah. Now, there are two things that shift your vibration or change your frequency more than just about anything else. Any guesses what that is? Any ideas? Two things that will shift your vibration, shift your energy more than just about anything else.
Maybe a shift in your paradigm.
A shift in your paradigm. Yeah. I mean, that could do it. Yeah. Yeah. But even before that,
Being able to make decisions.
yeah, for sure. 100%. Two things that will shift your vibration and your frequency more than just about anything else is your imagination and your ability to make decisions. Your imagination and your ability to make decisions. In fact, you guys should write this down. If you got a pen and a paper handy, write this down. Your life will expand to the extent of your imagination and your ability to make decisions. Your life will expand to the extent of your imagination and your ability to make decisions. And the reason is really simple, because the moment that you get into your imagination and you start to think about somebody who's achieving your goals, you start to think about that and you start to imagine that and you start to create that image and hold that on the screen of your mind. It's like flipping a switch. All of a sudden, now you're not operating down here on your current frequency. You're up here thinking about the frequency of your goal achieved. And when you make a decision based on that, it's amazing. You will instantaneously begin to attract everything that you need for the fulfillment of that goal. You will begin to attract on the level of the frequency that you're on. You'll begin to attract ideas, opportunities, and awarenesses based on the frequency that you're on. And when you get into your head and you start to use your imagination and make decisions based on that, you'll begin to attract decisions on that frequency, or opportunities, ideas, awarenesses on that frequency. I've seen this happen so oftentimes. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a decision about your goal. It could be any decision. If you think about it, emotions, they need to flow. Emotions are a form of energy, and energy needs to flow. And anytime you're stuck in indecision, you know, it's a stagnant feeling. And as soon as you make a decision, it's like on the highway. I was talking with Anna the other day, and it was really interesting because we were having a conversation about her and her affirmations and her self goal achieved, and what are some of the things that she's doing or not doing. And she made a committed decision that she was going to get on the train of affirmations and morning workouts. Okay, this is my wife. And it's so funny because a couple of days ago, we had that conversation. And then since then, we've been talking about it. And she said, yeah, you know, I asked her, I said, how are the affirmations going? How are your workouts? You feeling any better? She's like, yeah, you know, it's really funny. I did that the other morning And I had a realtor reach out to me that has a referral for me for some possible business. She's getting into a new industry. And I thought, really? And she's like, yeah, you know, it's crazy because like, I don't know if that happened from the fact that I started doing my affirmations and started to work out like that. But she's like, I'm just glad that it happened. And I was like, probably a coincidence. I wouldn't worry too much about that. But it's true. And I've seen this happen so many times. I mean, I remember very distinctly a conversation that I had with Janelle, this was months ago, where she said, you know, it's funny. Every time I get off the phone with you, something good happens. Every time I get off the phone with you, something good happens. And look, I'm not conceited enough to think that that has anything to do with me, but it just so happens that when we're having conversations, we're talking about what she wants, where she's going, about her goals, and encouraging her to do affirmations and things of that nature. It's like, I don't know if that sort of thing still happens to Janelle, but
That happened on Wednesday.
that happened on Wednesday. So what happened on Wednesday, Janelle?
Well, like half an hour after I call, I got a call from a potential client who was interested in us managing an Airbnb.
You got a potential call or a client from a potential client, a call from a potential client. Unreal. You know, now Anna said to me, she's like, well, this was somebody that I had reached out to weeks ago. So, you know, it could have been like the fact that they're just finally getting back around to me. I was like, well, yeah, probably totally unrelated. You know, in a situation like this, I mean, you're planting those seeds, you're putting it out there. But when you make decisions and when you start to get onto the frequency of your goal, it could be something from last week or last month or the last year where people start to reach back out to you. It's unbelievable. I've seen this happen too many times. This has happened to Jamie a couple of times too, where, you know, we'll be having a phone call, we'll hang up and then she'll text me right away and be like, you're never going to believe this, but while we were talking, I got an email. Is that right, Jamie? It's unreal. The fastest way to shift your frequency is to get into your imagination, start thinking about and visualizing your goal achieved, okay? And make decisions based on that. It's going to shift your energy. It's going to shift your frequency. And immediately you're going to begin to attract things that support that goal or that idea. That's how it happens, by law. This is not by luck or by chance. So my mentor asked me a question the other day that kind of rocked me a little bit. You know, like a lot of people, you know, I'm faced with challenges and obstacles and things come up that I probably wouldn't have hoped for or wished for. And it can be easy to kind of like backslide into either negativity or focusing on what's wrong in any given situation. And my mentor, he asked me a question that really stuck out with me. He said, are you strong enough to hold the vision of what you want? Are you strong enough to hold the vision of what you want? What he's getting at there is that, you know, we have an imagination, but we also have the will. We need the will to hold that image on the screen of our mind at all times and to focus on that despite everything that's going on around us. Despite what's going on around us. Okay. And then we need the discipline to do a couple of things. We need the discipline to act when opportunity comes, and the discipline to act contrary to our habitual nature. It's easy to act in congruent with our old past behavior and conditioning. That's easy. Are you strong enough to hold the vision? Because that's what it's going to require. Now, I used to think that like every time I made a decision, and I don't know if any of you guys can relate to this, but it seems like every time I make a decision, it's like the universe wants to test me. You know, it's like the universe is like, oh yeah, we'll see. We'll see how serious you are. You know, it's like, well, I'm going to get in shape. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, COVID comes and half the gyms around the world shut down. It's like, damn, I didn't see that one coming. You know, now I read something the other day, though, that really jumped out at me. And I actually really like this reframe a little bit. It said, the universe is never trying to test you. The universe is just giving you an opportunity to practice everything you say you want. The universe isn't testing you. It's giving you an opportunity to practice what you say you want. Now, that's significant to me. And the reason is because that simple reframe now takes that, it's not something that's being imposed upon me as a test or a punishment. It's an opportunity that the universe is providing for me to practice what I want. That's so much more empowering. That's so much more positive, isn't it? I think so. You know, I've shared this story with some of you before, but I used to wish and hope and pray to be a more patient man. I didn't grow up with that being the model. Okay. In fact, pretty far from it. And as a husband and as a father, I really wanted to be more patient with my family and the people closest to me. And a friend of mine told me one time, he pulled me aside and he said, yeah, you know, God's not going to come down and just zap you, give you more patience. He's going to give you more opportunities to practice being patient. And I've said, I laugh now because like I've got 2 kids and a dog. I got lots of opportunity to practice being patient. You know, but it's true. If you're praying for strength, you're going to have a lot of opportunities. The universe will deliver opportunities where you can practice being strong. Just so happens that it usually comes in the form of difficulty. If you want courage, it's going to be the same thing. The universe is going to give you ample opportunity, probably in the form of risk or danger or chances and things like that, to practice being courageous. And it's up to us to act in that moment, to decide and then have the discipline to act on it. Now, one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that decision is an action word. If you look it up in the dictionary, it says that it's a noun. It says that person, place, or thing. But, you know, I can't believe everything you read. The fact is that a decision is an action word. And one of my mentors drilled this into my head over and over and over again. He says, what? No action, no decision. No action, no decision. Some of you have heard me ask this question before, but if there's 3 frogs on a log and one decides to jump in, how many frogs are on a log? Jeannie says 0. Janelle says 3. Any other guesses? Yeah, Janelle's right. There's 3. Because a frog just made a decision. And decision doesn't mean shit until you've acted on it. No action, no decision. I was talking to my neighbor across the street the other day, and he was saying, this is the same neighbor, but he was saying that him and his wife decided to paint the interior of their house. And I was like, oh, sweet. Yeah, you guys are doing some home renos. I was like, when are you doing that? And he's like, oh, I don't know. We haven't decided yet. And I was like, oh, okay. And who's doing it? Oh, I don't know. I'm sure we'll find somebody though. In my head, I'm thinking, well, you haven't decided shit then. You just got an idea. You just got an idea. You haven't decided shit. I can't say that to him because people don't like when, you know, just all this unsolicited advice, you know. I got to keep my mouth shut around some people. But decision is an action word. No decision, no action. No action, no decision. The best way to make a decision quickly and firmly is when you take inspired action to support that. That's when stuff really starts to fire. That's when things really start to change and shift. So next week, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into faith, specifically applied faith. And if any of you have any hesitation or resistance around the word faith, I want to put your mind at ease, because I'm not a theologian, and it's not necessarily religious or anything of that nature. So it's going to be an interesting conversation for sure. But any questions about decision, indecision, or anything that we discussed today? Any comments? If you guys haven't had a chance to, or an opportunity yet, I highly recommend reading the essay Decision by Bob Proctor. And if any part of you reacts emotionally to it or has difficulty with it, get curious with yourself and start to ask yourself, why is it that I struggle with this? What is it about that I'm resistant to? And if you have an opportunity to watch that short video, last week, I'm not sure if everybody saw this, but last week at the bottom of the video or the email, I included a link to watch a short video by Bob Proctor about one of the habits that will change your life. It's very powerful and speaks to our conversation today. Melissa.
Yeah, just one thing I would say, like over the last month, I've been doing some reading about like kids and decision making, like looking at like a Montessori sort of like concept with raising children. And one of them talks about really like giving your children the opportunity to make decisions, which is interesting because in this conversation, we've learned that we kind of have been trained to over, long periods of time to not be able to make decisions. So I find that a really interesting idea. And so like this last month, I've been doing a lot of that with Esme, and I'll be like, okay, what do you want for breakfast? Do you want this or this? And what do you want to wear to school? Do you want to wear your shorts or your pants today? Like, which toothbrush do you want to use today? This one or this one? Like I always give her the opportunity to make a decision now when I ask her about anything. And so if anybody has kids, I like encourage that, because now it's really made, it's like made me more mindful about making my own decisions. And it's just always at the top of your mind then is decisions. So it's kind of interesting because it kind of goes with this conversation today.
Right, 100%. And you know what jumps out at me there? You know what is significant in that conversation, Melissa, is that to me, giving young kids the opportunity to do that and to make their own decisions has less to do with the decision. I don't really care what they eat for dinner or what they wear to school. If you guys see what my kids wear to school, it's a little ridiculous sometimes. But to me, that builds confidence, that builds their self-esteem in their ability to make those decisions. That's the key part. That's the takeaway. And Bob Proctor talks about that in this essay where he says that indecision, the key root cause of indecision is a lack of confidence or low self-esteem. And it's when we start to second guess ourselves and we start to wonder, well, did I make the right decision? What if it's not? And that's the key for that one. So I really like that, Melissa. I think that's a great point that you bring up. It has less to do with the decision and more to do with building that confidence and allowing them to make that decision. I like that. Any other last questions or comments here before I let you guys run? Okay, well, if you guys haven't had a chance to, check out that video and maybe give a read through one of those essays, if not both. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll take care and talk soon. See you, y'all.